here in Nigeria, the biggest highlight is the re-scrapping of the Ministry of Sports and Sports Development, and of course, reintroduction of the National Sports Commission under the leadership of Shehu Diko, led by Olakpade as well as the Director General. This means that the implementations of the provisions of the Decree 101 are completely in place now, and he's talked about a sports economy that will span from the grassroots, all the way to the local government to the state, to the senatorial zone, and to the national. And thereafter, we have what he calls a derived sports economy. And to drive this sports economy, the National Sports Commission has been granted a budget of nearly 95 billion naira. It's never been that rosy for Nigeria. This is an increase of 200 and in fact 300% increase from what we saw in 2024. So the budget for the National Sports Commission is big in itself. Of this budget, a whooping 78 billion will be used for, to run the sports itself in terms of infrastructure, attending competitions and all of that. So for me, the highlight for 2024 is, like I said, the scrapping of the sports ministry and the reintroduction of the National Sports Commission that will drive the sports economy, in their own words, into the future. What is your impression of 2024 in sports for Nigeria, and do you think there is a way out as we move towards 2025?
Well, I think that the first thing we've got to consider is, was 2024 a successful year for Nigeria in sports? In an Olympic year, that is usually the barometer of how you measure whether you've succeeded or not. And unfortunately for us, we did not do well at the Olympic Games. We didn't come back with a single medal. Our athletes did not perform to their best. I guess one would say the standout thing that we did in 2024 was our Super Eagles unexpectedly getting to the final of the African Nations Cup. And I say unexpectedly because when they went to that tournament, everybody just felt, well, this team is not going to do well, and so they're just going to go there, make up the numbers and come back. But they surprised everyone by getting to the finals. In athletics, our biggest hope, Tobi Amusa, who was world champion, world record holder, everything, went to Olympic Games, didn't quite perform well. So when you look at it in that respect, you've got to say 2024 as an Olympic year wasn't a good year for Nigerian sports. And I guess that is also what sparked the dissolution of the sports ministry and the creation of the National Sports Commission. I've got to give some credit to the past minister, John Owan Eno. He came in for a short time, tried to make some changes. Unfortunately, he was hamstrung by a lot of the things that, sort of hold back sports in Nigeria. But the good thing is about the National Sports Commission, the changes now, it's not just the change in nomenclature. It's about the people who have been put there. Now, you have Bukola Olopade, who's Director General. He's steeped in sports. He's been a sports commissioner in Ogun State. When he left that job, he created his own sports management company and had been running sports as a business for, I think, the last 10, 15 years. So that's somebody who has made a career out of, running sports as a business. And then you look at Shehu Diko, and I must mention, for those who don't know Bukola Olopade, if you have any marathon in Nigeria, it's run by Nilayo Sports Management, and Nilayo Sports Management is Bukola Olopade. Coming to Shehu Diko, we know Shehu Diko's antecedents. He's been a sports business entrepreneur for years and years. He was the man who brought Manchester United and Portsmouth to Nigeria to play a friendly match. He's been head of the NPFL, the LMC, and he's also been NFF vice president. So these are people who are have been steeped in sports all their lives. And like I told someone the other day, it's a new guard in the sense that you're having people who understand sports, who know sports, who live and breathe sports, trying to now come to run it at the very top. And if these two gentlemen don't succeed, then sports in Nigeria is doomed.
Well, let's hope that Diko and Olakpade will ensure that sports in Nigeria gets to an Eldorado state, because in the past we've had to struggle. In the past 66 years or thereabout, we've been struggling. In all of it, like you mentioned, the barometer is the Olympics, and I'm not too sure in the last 2 Olympic Games we've had any remarkable success as we expected. And like you mentioned, they could be the reason why the sports ministry has been scrapped. At the world level, especially in athletics, we'll talk about World Championship, we've had only one. Of course, only one, and that's not too good for us after 66 years in sports. We really need to have to. In terms of population and the interest, we are into several sports disciplines, over 50 sports disciplines, and we should be able to produce athletes and sportsmen and women that can throw it up. But we have been told the National Sports Commission will have to do that in just a few more years. Let's look at it, Colin. Let's break it down now to how this National Sports Commission will perform. Budget, they've had an increased budget of over 300%, nearly 95 billion. No such amount of money has ever been given or injected into sports in the past. Is this enough? And can it turn around our sports in the next few years?
Well, I mean, you can never say it's enough, because right now the work that needs to be done in Nigerian sports in terms of developing facilities, building capacity with trainers, coaches, and then also, you know, getting athletes, getting training grants and competing is a lot. It's a lot of money. But I believe, look, I'm thrilled about the fact that, you know, the Sports Commission has a budget that's 300% more than the Sports Ministry used to get. And let's understand something. The Sports Ministry in the past was the Ministry of Youth and Sports. And so the budget they used to have was combined with the Youth and the Sports Ministry. And the largest chunk of that budget did not even go to the sports side. It went to the youth development side, the NYSC. That was where almost 60–70% of that budget went into. So the Sports Ministry itself was left with only a very small chunk to execute whatever programs were needed. Now we have the National Sports Commission, different from the from the Sports Ministry, which has a 300% increase in budget, which, if you look at it, might even be as high as 400–500%, because when you take out that Ministry of youth part, you take out that huge chunk of budget that we're eating up, then you now know that the sports itself now has a higher percentage in terms of allocation. So, and I think we're seeing a good start to how they want to put these funds to use. I think Bukola Olakpade was saying the other day that they have training grants. So they've graded the athletes into different tiers, 1, 2, 3, I think 1 to 3 tiers, if I'm not mistaken. And for each tier of athlete, you get a certain amount in training grant. Now, if the lower tier athlete begins to perform well, you move up in your category, and then you get more money for your training grants. And then if you're on top there and your performance drops, then you drop down. So that's, in many ways, that's both a motivation, you know, for athletes to do well, and also if you drop for any means, you also know you're going down. It's like promotion and relegation. So that's a great first step as far as I'm concerned, because one of the things that athletes used to complain about was training grants. And that's why you saw a lot of the athletes would go back to places like Delta State and River State to get money for training grants abroad. Now the Sports Ministry is putting that in place. Not the Sports Ministry, so we're used to it.
National Sports Commission.
The Sports Commission is already doing that. And that's just the first step in a lot of the strategy that they want to execute for sports in Nigeria.
Okay, let's get it down to sports discipline, yes. But before we look at the discipline, each sports discipline has a high chance of participating in this large chunk of money that's been given out now. Let's look at grassroots development in sports. Over the years, we've had issues trying to replace our stars. When the stars go off, you can't get them back again. If you look at tennis, you can't remember, any name of any young budding player that is looking forward to taking over, from the established stars that have been there, both in the male and the female. What can we do? Because this Sports Commission now told us that they are going to look at grassroots sports development. They are going to organize competition from the local government level and graduate up to national from the senatorial district. And what can be done, at the grassroots level to stimulate the culture of having stars, being replaced, like you mentioned, from grade A to grade, from maybe C to B, B to and to A.
I think that's a great first step, and I believe we discussed this recently. You need to have a constantly moving conveyor belt of talent, that comes through all the time, all the way from the very bottom to the top. When you don't have that, then all you have is a scattergun approach. For instance, a lot of the athletes that we have now that are competing for us are products of, I'm talking about athletics, are products of the making of champions. And Making of Champions started this program, I think, almost 15 years ago. I remember when Bambo, who runs it, came back from the US and decided to start the Making of Champions. And so they come in, they train these athletes, and then they help them get scholarships to US schools, like we're doing with football now with the Mercy Akide Foundation. So a lot of these athletes that have gone there came through that Making of Champions program. Now, if you take that and sort of, escalate it, scale it to a wider level led by the sports ministry, then you have a wider net to pick up talent, like you said, from the grassroots, local governments, senatorial district, state level, national level. We're a country of over 200 million people or more. I mean, I don't know what the figures are right now. So there's no way, if you have a structured organizational planning that starts at the grassroots level and you have competitions, that you will not pick out the best. And these competitions need to be incentivized. So whether it's at school level, school level is always the best, because then you can catch them that way. But even in other levels, you can still create nets that can drag these talents in. And so when you create that motivation, when you win, instead of giving out these cash prizes like we're used to doing, build that community. Put in money to build more facilities so that more people can train, and then give them a pathway towards a real professional competition.
Yes, you mentioned the Mercy Akide Foundation. A few days ago, she was in the studio here. By the way, Colin Udoh is the husband to Mercy Akide Udoh, the three-time African Women Championship winner in Africa here, and of course, a FIFA ambassador as well. Colin, Mercy was here. She talked about her foundation aimed at discovering young female players that could be taken outside of the country, honed their skills, honed and returned. Let's marry it to the Super Falcons of Nigeria, where she dominated over a period of time. After her era, we haven't seen dominance, on the part of, the female national team. And for me, it's traceable to the lack of replacement of these stars. After the Nkirus, the Messis left, we've had to struggle to maintain second place. Not even, we are, first place winners for a long time. Now we've had South Africa as the, leader of women in African football. Has it anything to do with the level of competition in Nigeria, or maybe administration?
Well, I think it's probably that conversation is a bit more nuanced than that. And again, it comes back to the grassroots level. When we dominated Africa, we had about in fact, Nigeria had the first professional women's league in the world, because even the US league started, I think, in 2000, about 99 years. That's when the WUSA league was the first professional women's league in the world at the time. That's when it started. But before then, the Nigerian league was already professional. So we had actually the first women's professional league in the world. Everybody else was doing. I remember back in those days, the European countries only had amateur leagues. In fact, it was only recently that the European countries have now turned into professional leagues. So we had our players playing professionally here, just like the men, side by side with the men, on a weekly basis. And so we are a step above other countries, especially in Africa. That's why we're dominating so much. Now, the problem was that we have almost remained at that level, where our league has not our women's league has not grown to the point where you can say, okay, let us improve beyond the level where we are. We're still at that same level where we were maybe 10, 15, 20 years ago. Now, in that same time, you've seen other countries coming, like South Africa, their leagues have developed.
Morocco
have developed their leagues. Ghana have developed their league. And then players are also going out to the US and Europe and elsewhere to play. And so they've caught up with us, because we have been, we're not even standing still, we're moving back. So now everybody's at a level playing field. The only slight difference we have over, or advantage I might call it, over the others, because one, we have a lot of players and there's a lot of talent, we move to a lot of talent. At the same time, we still carry that legacy of being, African champions. So we use that almost as a stick to beat others with. But you know, when you don't prepare as much as you should and don't get the kind of preparation that you need to sort of stay above that level, that's how we lost to Morocco and lost to Zambia at the last Women's Africa Cup of Nations. So we need to actually create this pathway, like I'm talking about, of identifying the talents very early, developing them, you know, training them, and then if we even need to send them abroad to get higher quality coaching, then we do that, send them to colleges, to professional clubs, so that when they come back to play for the Super Falcons, they are the best of the best. I mean, for instance, we just started this scouting program today. I've seen a few girls there who have been, there are some of them that are raw, you know, they know that, okay, these ones have a future potential, and they are the ones that you think and look at and say, okay, these ones can do well immediately.
But talking about the Messi Akinde Foundation, do you have any kind of collaboration? Because Messi, former captain of the Super Falcons, like I mentioned, FIFA ambassador, she has that pedigree in the female football in the world. Does she have any collaboration with the, let's say, the National Sports Commission, by extension now, the Nigerian Football Federation, aim at helping them, you know, throw up these players that could replace the ones that are there now?
Well, not at the moment. I mean, we're talking to everybody. The Sports Commission, I think, I know I spoke to Shehu Diko. Hopefully, if everything goes well, we should get down, have a sit down with him next week. The NFF, we've had conversations, at least let them know that this is what we're doing. We've also been in touch with the state government here in Rivers State. So hopefully, if everything goes well, we should also have some great conversations going with them. So something like this is not something that one person can handle. You know, it takes partnerships and collaborations, because at the end of the day, for us, it's not just about them playing football. It's to create two pathways to life. You know, so first of all, those who want to play football, they can play football. The most important thing is they go to the US on a football scholarship. They get a world-class education. I mean, everybody knows US universities have some of the best in the world. So they get a world-class education. They make world-class connections with other people, not only from the US, but from other parts of the world. And then they are also getting coached by some of the best coaches in the business in the US. So when they are done with that 4 years of school, they can decide they want to play football professionally, which is great. Or they can decide, okay, look, I don't want to do football anymore. I want to go
into administration.
Go into administration, take my degree, and do something good for myself and my family. So there are multiple pathways. Once they get there, they study, they play football, they can do a lot. They can come back home and do a lot for the community and the state, just like Mercy is doing now.
Well, let's hope that the National Sports Commission will enter into appropriate partnership and throw up this challenge, because you cannot do it alone. There's a need for partnership with government and with private individuals that should think as well. Colin, now let's look at basketball. Basketball used to be an area where Nigeria was having near dominance in Africa, but that looks like fading away over decades of administration, which now we hope is being resolved. What are our chances now? D Tigers and D Tigers don't seem to be having that formidable nature we used to know of them. There have been an admixture of players coming from the established leagues across Europe and America. What would be responsible for our state now, and what can we expect in 2025 in basketball from Nigeria?
Basketball is a complicated situation. The thing is, you know, with basketball, you have sort of like something simmering under the surface that hasn't quite bubbled up. Well, it did bubble up at some point, and then so it was resolved, not completely in quotes, and then went back under the surface. So it's still simmering there. So it's kind of difficult, really, you know, with basketball to look ahead when you look at all the issues. They have got funding issues. They've got people on the outside fighting those on the inside, and then, you know, you've got a lot of things that are going on there. With that said, I think in many ways, you've got to give some credit to the leadership of the NBBF, because despite all of the issues, they've at least tried to get stuff done. The women qualified for the World Cup 2 years ago. Unfortunately, the sports minister at the time decided to take matters into his hands and pull them out of the World Cup and cost those girls a chance to go represent the country, because he was whether he was ill-advised or he acted on his own, that's a question for another day. But we saw them at the Olympic Games. They were drawn in a very tough group, and they came out, you know, they showed themselves, and they made the country proud. Even though they were missing some really good players. And on the back of those performances, one of the girls actually got an WNBA 10-day contract, and then from there she moved to China. So basketball has the potential to be an outstanding sport for Nigeria. Unfortunately, it's not being tapped into properly. I mean, if you look at the NBA, the number of Nigerians, you know, in the NBA alone we can form like multiple teams and combined with the ones who are in Nigeria and in Europe. Unfortunately, we don't have that, and let's hope that Rivers Hoopers, who are going to the Basketball Africa League, will also shoot for at least, I mean, last time they went there, they got a bronze medal, so let's hope this time they can go for gold. So, I mean, I'm confident in the basketball talent we have. I just hope that, you know, they can find a way to get rid of all of this infighting, whether openly or privately, and just think about basketball and move basketball forward.